And we're live with another podcast. Mike here.
Mitch over here.
And today we're going to talk about the Pacific.
Rounding out the last division we got here and start from the bottom.
Yeah. Who do you got at number 8?
At number 8, I have the Vancouver Canucks.
I also had the Vancouver Canucks at 8.
Yeah, to me, they're right up there with any team in the league as the worst in the entire NHL.
Yeah.
There's just nothing really there.
There's some things there, but nothing about them really gets me like, oh, this could be a good year for them. They just signed Jay Beagle, which isn't the biggest of things.
They made
got
a lot
They got Anton Roussel, another.
They made a bunch of fourth line signings for multiple years. I mean, both of them were signed $3 million for 4 years, and neither of them are exactly young. Jay Beagle's 32, and he isn't even a good fourth line center now. I don't know what he's going to be in 4 years from now.
They have Sam Gagner, but even he's getting older.
I mean, when you talk about the Canucks, you have to talk about
28. Never mind.
Their youth. And Brock Besser was great when he played last year.
Yeah.
He's definitely someone who could burst onto the scene this season and possibly even score somewhere near 40 goals.
He's still young enough for it to be, but they still have to add a couple pieces before you can really say, they can move up from where they were. I mean, last year they were 7th. They were last, but
the Coyotes were the only team behind them. But they also have Elias Pettersson was the 2017 first round pick for them. He's someone who should fill into the lineup, possibly be in that first line center role. This will be the first year without Daniel and Henrik for the Canucks since 1999. So the first time this millennium where they won't have either of the Sedin brothers playing for them.
And you and if you're a Vancouver fan, you hope you get something out of Virtanen.
Yeah, he's someone.
There's not really. I mean, he hasn't done much to really say.
He's been up and down from the AHL to the NHL. He was a very high first-round pick. He's only 21 years old right now, so he could still turn into something.
Yeah, true.
To this point, he's shown to be
yet.
Nothing more than a poor bottom six forward at the moment. I mean, defensively, they just have a lot of... Alexander Edler's been a good defenseman his whole career. He's getting older. He's the best defenseman they have. He's probably more of a number 2 or even second pair defenseman.
They have Rosado.
Chris Tanev's another good defenseman. Could possibly be number 2. But past that, I mean, it's all third pair guys and guys that aren't even really. I mean, they got Michael Delzato, Erica Branson. There's just not a lot there.
Yeah.
Goaltending, Markstrom's not terrible. I mean, it's just a team that has nothing that really stands out as even good. Not to mention great. There's nothing about this team that's inspiring in any way.
It's just weird how like a couple years ago, 2011 they were in the
2011 they went to the Stanley Cup in 2011.
And then not really anything.
Yeah,
they had 2 good goalies and they traded both of them away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had Corey Schneider and Roberto Luongo. They just never could really put it together with the Sedins. That was the furthest they got in 2011. They got to Game 7 against the Bruins, but they just could not finish it. And like you said, they never really made it. They never made it back to the Stanley Cup after that, or even before that. For all those years, they had the 2 of them. So, I think you could definitely call that a kind of a waste of the prime of 2 future Hall of Fame players that were together their entire career, and they just could not put together a team.
You thought maybe with Luongo they have 2 really good guys in the Sedins and
Luongo,
but
never put it together, and that falls at the feet of the front office, not the Sedin brothers. They had nothing to do with that, really. I mean, they still...
And you still remember all the protests that happened in Vancouver after that, too.
Yeah, after they lost in the Stanley Cup. Yeah, the Canucks are a team. They've been around since the 70s. They still have yet to win a Stanley Cup. And they are still very far away looking at their roster now. Although, like we said, they still have some young guys
to be excited about.
So there's something there. They're not as terrible of a team to watch or to be a fan of as like an Ottawa.
Yeah, exactly.
Would be. So we move on to number 7. Who do you got the 7th spot?
I have the Arizona Coyotes.
I also have the Coyotes down as number 7.
I actually had a little trouble with this one because I feel like Arizona could be because just how they ended last year on the good run, that maybe that can go forward. Yeah, some of their younger players are gonna come up. You hope that what's his name?
Dylan Strome.
Dylan Strome can be someone this season, or can come up and stay up for a significant amount of time, except for a couple games.
Yeah, they have another team with a lot of young players. They're a little bit further along than the Canucks are.
Yeah.
You look at it, you said Dylan Strome, he was great in the AHL this past season. He's never really been able to stick up in the NHL level, but this will be his year. He will be in the NHL the entire season. At least that's what expectations are. You look, Clayton Keller is a great young player. He's only 19 years old, and he already had, I think it was close to a 30-goal season.
Yeah, close to it.
So, yeah, there's a lot of young players here. That there's Christian Dvorak. There's, like you said, Dylan Strome, Brandon Perlini.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like here in terms of young players. I don't know if they necessarily have the defense or really goaltending to stand up.
And Toronto
but like you said, they did great at the end of the last season.
Exactly. But they started out last season really.
They were awful to start
they
the
didn't
season
get a win
under Rick
until
Tocchet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close to 15 games into the season. They didn't even have a win yet. So, yeah, you look at defensively, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's obviously a number one guy.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hjalmarsson is another very good defenseman. So they have pieces. Derek Stepan is an okay first line center. They added
the Rangers.
They added Alex Galchenyuk in the Max Domi trade. So they have some talent now.
Some, yeah.
Yeah, they signed Michael Grabner to a contract which was much less than I expected.
Think it's a close kind of division where they'll still probably finish 7th, but I still think it's an improvement from the 73 that they got last year.
Yeah, they're definitely a team
70,
on the upswing, and I could see them moving up a little bit more than this. I don't really think that they're going to really challenge for a playoff spot necessarily, but they're
improved.
They're certainly an improvement on last season, and they're building the right way, which I'm not sure if you could really ever say that about the Coyotes until now.
Exactly.
They've never really been a team with a whole lot of success. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, I believe in 2012.
Yeah.
That's really their only success they've had in terms of playoffs. So at least now they are building the right way.
Right.
And they're definitely trending in the right direction. So who do you have at number 6?
Number 6.
This is where it starts to get interesting.
I have the Oilers.
I also have the Oilers, so we are 3 for 3 so far.
You obviously have the best player in hockey in Connor McDavid, but your coaches and GM aren't really helping them to build around him, really.
Yeah.
He was on the slowest line last year with the fastest guy in the NHL.
Yeah, so, the Oilers were a team coming into this offseason where I thought there's going to be a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Peter Chiarelli, the general manager, always makes big moves. None of them are ever very good, but he always makes big moves, so I expected with how terrible of a season they had last year that there would just be a lot of change in Edmonton, and there has been zero.
Especially when they went to the playoffs the year before, but
and struggled this year. So I really thought there'd be change, but there isn't any.
No.
The team's exactly the same as last year.
Granted, last year Talbot struggled, but I don't know.
He struggled last year, and he could certainly pick his game back up. He had a 908 save percentage. The prior year he had 919. So if he does play to the level he did 2 seasons ago, then you could potentially talk about this team as maybe contending for a wild card spot, especially with Connor McDavid getting even better. I mean, he's only 21 years old.
Yeah, and he keeps putting up over 100 points. So
exactly.
Even with really nobody around him, he's still there.
I mean, last season, like you said, with the slow line mates, he had Milan Lucic. Milan Lucic strapped to him the entire season, along with Patrick Maroon for half the season before he was traded at the deadline. So it's they need to...
My guess there is because McDavid would get knocked around, maybe they felt he should be there just as a body.
Yeah.
But even so, you want kind of what the Flyers kind of did near the end of the season. You kind of want your first line to be the speed. You want someone to keep up with McDavid.
Yeah, you can't have a guy like Milan Lucic on a line with Connor McDavid because, like you just said, he can't keep up. He can't. No. He's significantly slower than Connor McDavid. Milan Lucic is a slow hockey player. Connor McDavid's the fastest player in the league. You cannot put those two together and expect to have any success. Of course they did, just because
it's
Connor McDavid. But you look at Connor McDavid's numbers, and he barely had any power play production at all. Almost all of his production was at even strength. So it really just goes to show how bad a team he had around him this past season. There's just not There's no high-end talent to go along with him other than Leon Draisaitl, but they moved him back to center. He used to be on the line with McDavid the prior season. So and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is a very good third-line center, which is where they have him now. But in terms of wingers,
they don't have anything. When you have to have Lucic as your top winger, you don't really have much. He's 30 and he's getting paid $6 million until 2023.
Yeah, so there's just not a lot to like in terms. I mean, you could look at a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi, who is 20 years old. He spent a lot of the time in the AHL this past season. Expectations are he's going to be in the NHL this year.
Right. You hope that
he's a winger, so you hope that maybe he could move into that top six and help out there.
And defensively, they don't really have that much either. I know they made the whole trade last season because they felt they didn't really have the defense, which if you would have kept Hull, that might have actually helped you out a little better than
having Adam Larson be a second pair defenseman.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, defensively, there's been rumors going around that they'll trade Oscar Klefbom. Obviously, it hasn't happened, so I don't really expect it to at the moment. But yeah, defensively, their best defenseman really is Adam Larson. Yeah. He's their best defenseman.
Yes.
But he is a second pair defenseman at best. Yeah. He's nothing special.
Not really anything there defensively.
Darnell Nurse is a decent young defenseman.
Yeah.
Chris Russell. I mean, Oscar Lindblom. Wow. Oscar Klefbom is a good young defenseman, but he seems to get blamed for everything wrong with the team. He's paired with Adam Larson a lot of the time on the first pair. So it seems like they, at least from what we've heard from interviews from coaches and the media in Edmonton especially, Klefbom seems to, because he likes to push the pace a little bit more offensively, get blamed for a lot of Larson's mistakes, which isn't necessarily the case. So I defensively, there's just nothing really there.
Our team might want to do well, especially for McDavid being the best player in the league. To have the best player in the league and not really build around him. Really.
The league is.
I mean, they're a team that haven't seen much from. Not many games since really McDavid came in, but everything you see from him, it's great. He's the best player.
Yeah, so it's just a shame that the team hasn't been able to build around him. It looked like just not this past offseason. I mean, sorry, not this past playoffs, but the playoffs before they made it to the Western Conference Final. It looked like this was going to be
Anaheim.
They look like an up and coming team, but then Cam Talbot didn't play as well, and everything just kind of fell apart. And obviously the Hall for Larson trade
really made it seem like that they're gonna change really anything line wise or anything for McDavid for. Speed wise,
there wasn't any real They added Pontus Aberg. Like there's really no additions here that would lead one to believe that McDavid's going to get any more help on that top line or on the power play.
I mean, they are still a young team, but still.
Yeah, there's
Russell
just
and Cam Talbot are your oldest at 31, but I mean, besides Brodziak, who's 34.
So yeah, they're just a team that, again, leaves a lot to be desired, but I could still see them sneaking into a playoff spot because they have Connor McDavid on the team.
He changes the team that much.
Yeah, and like we said, they have the center depth. They have the top three centers of McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent-Hopkins. So, and if Cam Talbot can play like he has in the past, it's still a team.
Klefbom and Larson can play as a number one unit. It's sort of like the number two that they kind of are.
Then it's a team that could be a little bit scary because you see that Connor McDavid in the lineup. I mean, nobody really wants to go up against the Edmonton Oilers just because of that factor.
But because they just kind of have Connor McDavid and I mean they have some center depth, but they just kind of teams just have to go up against Connor McDavid. They don't really have to worry that much depth wise. So
moving on to number 5. Who do you have?
I have the Calgary Flames.
Okay, I guess we are staying the same because I also have the Calgary Flames at 5. This is one that I kind of struggled with a little bit.
I did a little. They ended last season at 5th. I think they're probably going to end up around the same thing. They added James Neal, which is big for them. That was a good signing. Smith obviously played great last year. You kind of hope that he can continue it, even though he's kind of in his career hasn't really done that. He's done okay. He hasn't had a great back-to-back years.
Yeah, for me looking at this, I was debating back and forth whether or not to put the Flames at 5 or at 4. And what really sealed the deal for me was just looking at the goaltending position and the fact that Mike Smith played really well last year and they still couldn't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen Mike Smith be very inconsistent his entire career. So I have no faith in him at all.
They added Noah Hannafin. They added some people out of the trade for...
Elias Lindholm, but they lost Dougie.
Yeah,
they lost Dougie Hamilton.
They lost their best defenseman.
Who's, their best defenseman. And in my opinion, I think the Flames lost the trade. I think they got worse from the trade. Looking at their roster, I mean, offensively, obviously, they have Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, James Neal now, even the addition of Elias Lindholm.
Yeah.
There is some talent here.
Matthew Tkachuk.
Matthew Tkachuk is a great young player. So they do offensively. I think that they can stack up with most teams, especially in this division. I think they have one of the best offenses in the division. But when we go to defense now, T.J. Brody's a good defenseman. Giordano's aging rapidly. Hannafin's a second pair guy at the moment. Like they have some talent defensively. It's just not a whole hell of a lot, and I don't trust that Mike Smith will again be able to make up for those deficiencies, especially with Dougie Hamilton leaving. Yeah. So that was my thinking.
Giordano, who's in his mid-30s now, so I mean.
Yeah, he's aging. He's not quite what he was once.
Yeah.
Before. So, the Flames are one of those teams who in the offseason, I think everyone, especially last offseason, I think a lot of people had them making the playoffs.
Right.
They're similar to the Hurricanes, who they made that trade with, in that people, the media members often look at them, see their roster, and say, good offense, okay defense, goaltending was good, playoff team.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for them to put it together before I can really give them a nod. But obviously, with the talent they have, with guys like Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, they could do it.
If I was the GM of Calgary, I would look to maybe sign Mason or something, just in case like Smith has another bad year. I mean, they have $7 million, and I don't know how much they want to pay for him. But
I mean, John Gillies isn't really much of a backup. So I think
he's still young, so you never really know if he can amount to anything.
Yeah, he had a good season last year in the AHL. I think Steve Mason would be a good addition.
I just think kind of add that goaltender depth that can kind of help him.
I think that would definitely help. I think Steve Mason, in my opinion, is better than Mike Smith is, actually.
But he wouldn't want to be neither one. I don't think would want to be a backup. So.
Yeah, I think that they could end up being a tandem if you wanted to do that. Although with Smith's numbers from last season, I'm not sure how willing he would be to be in a tandem.
You already know how Steve Mason felt with the Flyers in their goalie tandem.
It's true, but he didn't really do too well in Winnipeg when he was given the starting job at the start of the season.
Right, but then he also got hurt too.
Yeah, but his numbers were very poor. That's really the main reason why he was bought out.
But moving on from Calgary, number 4.
Number 4, this is the team that I was debating back and forth, and it was the goaltending position that saved the Ducks for being number 4 for me.
This is our first difference. I had the Kings.
You have the Kings, okay. Well, I saw John Gibson, and to me, he's head and shoulders above anything the Flames have goaltending wise. So that's why I have the Ducks at 4. So for me, the Ducks, they're not really what they once were. They're top guys. They're Corey Perry's, Ryan Getzlaf, Ryan Kessler. Those three were obviously great for them. They had some playoff success with the three of them. But they're all aging. They're all 33. Yeah. Ryan Kessler is injured constantly.
He is.
I think they have some young talent. They have guys like Ricard Raquel.
Oh yeah, they have Ryan Miller as a backup too. So goaltender and depth wise, that could also kind of favor.
Yeah, the Ducks definitely have the goaltending. They have some good young guys in Silverberg and Raquel. Henrique's a good middle sixer, but I see their top end players, guys who they're probably relying on, and how much they're aging, and I'm just not willing to put them any higher on my list.
Right.
So, what was your thinking going into the number 3 spot?
Actually, I didn't even talk about the Kings yet, but I had the Kings at 4, and I had them there just because I just kind of felt they were going to probably end up where they were last year at 4. I felt obviously Kovalchuk helps them offensively. I still have Kopitar, Doughty, and Quick. But there's not, outside of those guys, and Jeff Carter, I guess, still, but outside of that, never really depth-wise or anything, don't really have that thing yet.
I think if you compare the Kings and the Ducks, obviously they're two teams that are kind of aging, at least in their core. But I think that with Anze Kopitar being a few years younger than the big pieces that the Ducks have, that's where they kind of separated themselves from me. I think Kovalchuk is a good signing. 3 years is a bit much for a guy who's 35 years old, but I still think that he can be a top 6, maybe more of a second-line winger who could put 30 goals. Yeah. Put 30 goals up for them. Dustin Brown, obviously, a lot depends on him. He definitely improved last season. So, I think I do agree with you that
the depth really isn't there.
There isn't much depth for the Kings, but I look at them even defensively. Alec Martinez, Drew Doughty. Yeah. Phaneuf is still a decent guy. So
obviously, Quick is a goalie that can obviously dictate this.
Yeah, he's someone who is also a little bit inconsistent, but when he's on his game, he's better than pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
So what was your thinking with the Ducks being below? Or sorry, no, you had the Ducks above. What was your thinking with the Ducks?
I just felt this division's so close, and they're always like right there. They ended up second last year. I felt like that's where I had them second in the division, I think.
Oh, you have them at second, not third.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think defensive, they've just been a team that's been reliant on them having a good defense. And if John Gibson can play...
Yeah, I think that is true.
They have the goaltending depth. The defense isn't really there. There's some pieces there, and I think just they've been around each other enough, and the older guys can kind of work together to get them.
Looking at the Ducks, I didn't mention their defense. Their defense is a good young defense. They have Manson and Montour and Hampus Lindholm and Cam Fowler. So they have a lot of good guys there defensively. They just added Luke Shen to be kind of their 7. I think with John Gibson, obviously, again...
If John Gibson's on his game, the defense can help bail him out, or vice versa.
Yeah, so I think, they're going to be one of the least scored-on teams in the NHL.
That's the thing, but offensively, they don't.
That'll be their problem for them.
But they've never really had the top offensive guys either. Yeah. Even when they went to the Western Conference Championship against Nashville.
So you have the Vegas Golden Knights at number 2. Number 3. Sorry, I have them at number 2.
I have at number 3.
You have them at number 3. So I have them at number 2. I was someone who said after this playoff that I think that they're going to... they're not going to have as successful of a season the following year. No. I don't know how much more successful they could have it other than winning the Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
But I think the addition of Paul Stastny is a big one.
That's a big one. It helps them center depth-wise.
Yeah, I think...
They lost Neal, but
it gives
one
them
of their scorers from last season.
It gives them a good second-line center, the addition of Paul Stastny.
They still have the top first line, but that top line can only bring you so far. I think they'll still be a playoff team next year. I just think they'll be third, not first, from what they were last year. Yeah. Obviously, Fleury is Fleury, and we saw what he did in the playoffs, but defensively, it's not the best.
Yeah, really. I look at Vegas, and everyone last year seemed to have a career year.
Yeah.
Marchessault, Carlson, Riley Smith, even some of the defensemen. Braden McNabb looked like he was not... with the Kings, exactly. He looked like he was a 7th guy, and then once he came to the Golden Knights, he was he was at times on their top pair.
Yeah.
Nate Schmidt was great for them. Marc-Andre Fleury had the best season of his career.
Exactly, especially in the playoffs. Now could score on them.
So I think there's obviously some regression here.
And even last season, they're probably not on this same thing as last year, but they had 6 or 7 goalies go at them for the start from them.
Yeah, they had a lot of so that's something where you could say there's going to be regression from these guys' top seasons, but they're not going to have as many injuries in net. But you also have to account for the fact that pretty much everyone that came in net in between the pipes for the Golden Knights played pretty well. I mean,
Exactly.
Maxime Lagacé was an ECHL goalie and came in and played a good number of games for the Golden Knights and did not play very poorly. So, yeah, I look at them goaltending-wise, even if Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't have quite the season he did last year, if there were too many starts on his plate that he hasn't really had for the past couple of years, Malcolm Subban's a good young goalie.
It didn't really seem to bother him that much.
Yeah,
either,
but
so.
even if it does have an effect on the season, I think Malcolm Subban's a good enough backup goalie to make up for that. Offensively, yeah, I think they don't necessarily have the depth they didn't last season either. Paul Stastny's a big addition there, just in terms of having that.
He's more of a
second line center.
Yeah, he's more of a third center guy, but they're gonna have to use him at second center.
Yeah, he'll be good enough.
It's kind of you kind of lost Neil, but you gained Stastny kind of thing.
Yeah, one's a winger, one's a center, but I think they needed a center.
Yeah, the center is more important than the winger.
So yeah, I like what they did this offseason. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with the whole Carlson situation.
They've been rumored for Carlson, so
yeah, and
obviously if they were to get Carlson
that would move them up.
Exactly, but if any team that can get Carlson, that obviously moves them up.
Exactly.
Where they were.
So who are we missing here? So we're
at number 1 now.
Kind of. Yeah, I had the Golden Knights at 2. You had them at 3. So I have the Sharks at number 1. You also
have the Sharks at number 1.
Also have the Sharks. So again, another team who could possibly get Erik Karlsson.
Exactly, and just they're already pretty good now. They added Kane, who since they acquired him played well. Obviously enough for a contract for $7 million. Yeah,
they. I think you look at them and they're another team with some aging core pieces. Joe Pavelski, their captain, is 34 years old. Obviously, Joe Thornton, 39. But Thornton missed a lot of last season.
Brett Burns, 33.
Thornton missed a lot of last season. So I think they could definitely improve just from having him more healthy.
Right.
He's had a lot of injuries throughout his career, but if he can be more healthy this season, I think that's definitely a big step up for them in terms of second line center.
Yeah. They've always been a team that's been around, like close to the top or in the Pacific. They might struggle a bit at times during the season, but they always somehow manage to come back from it.
Yeah, they've been in the playoffs
last year. They finished 3rd in the division with 100 points, one behind in Anaheim.
Yeah, so it was a very good season for them. I think Brent Burns, he struggled a bit last season. I think he could have a bit of an uptick in his production versus last year.
But at 33, it just kind of hope that's not him kind of declining. Obviously, there's going to be some decline in him in hitting his mid-30s.
Yeah. But even goaltending-wise, Martin Jones is a great young goaltender.
Yeah,
so they have a lot of good pieces. Couture, Pavelski. Even though they're aging a bit, they still produce a lot. Tomas Hertl, is a great young player.
They had Hoffman for a second and then traded him away.
Yeah, and they made out pretty well in that trade.
Yeah. Even if they would have kept Hoffman, that still would have bumped them up a lot too.
So I don't necessarily have them head and shoulders above every single other team here.
No.
I think
this is a very close division.
Yeah, especially at the top. I think the Golden Knights, Sharks, Kings. I think any of those teams. Yeah. You have the Ducks ahead of the Kings. Any of those teams could possibly win the division.
Right.
I think there's probably only going to be 3
and obviously it can
coming out of this division because of how great the Central is.
It can obviously be different from what we have it. Completely different.
Oh, yeah.
But I still think it's going to be the top 3, and then the wild cards are obviously going to be a team from the Central.
Yeah, I
the
think
Central's just so much better than the Pacific is.
So, yeah, I think a team like the Golden Knights will probably have a bit of regression. I think the Sharks will have... I think they'll have a bit of a better season just with, like we said, Joe Thornton being added, a couple guys having...
Yeah, and even you said if in Edmonton with Connor McDavid, he could be someone that, and if Cam Talbot plays what he played 2 years ago, then...
They could surprise people and make the playoffs again. So, yeah, there's a lot that could go wrong here. Obviously, I'm kind of surprised we had our predictions fairly similar, even though I think that there's a lot that could go different here.
Like, it's different, but
it's difficult.
It's going to be difficult. There's probably be different who you tell it or who you ask about it. So
yeah, so this is another division where it's not necessarily set in stone where these teams will be. I think in the Eastern Conferences it was a little bit easier to decide who will go where.
It was a little easier, but still there was still some difficulty. Just that's more of the wild card kind of thing there.
So yeah, I think it'll end up being the Sharks. I could 100% be wrong. I think looking at it, I see the Sharks as the only team I can guarantee will not miss the playoffs.
Right.
I would be shocked if the Sharks missed the playoffs.
So would I.
The Golden Knights, I'd be pretty surprised, but then the whole regression thing.
Right.
Ducks and Kings again. They're
the Kings
aging
were
teams.
out the couple years. They just made it last year.
Yeah. So I think the Sharks I have them up here because they're the only team that I am confident in where they're going to be, where they're going to finish. Because like you said, they had so many years at the top or near the top of this division for so long, and I just don't see it changing right
now. But going off, I guess we can talk about it more in the next podcast, but playoff teams or whatever. You think they're coming out from the Central, or you think there could be a Pacific team sneaking in?
I think there's no Pacific wild card. I think it's Sharks, Golden Knights, Kings. That's what I have going here.
Okay.
So wrap this up.
Yeah, so that's the last of our predictions of each division. So I guess until next time, see you.
See you then.